book and hearing the comments. I think they have extended this discourse in many important ways. I think here is one perspective presented before us by Ajay, that this is populism of a very dangerous variety, though he says that it opens up also possibilities for restoring democracy or advancing democracy. But there are also dangerous possibilities of this becoming more violent, more conflict-ridden, more homogenizing, more aggressive, and so on. But there are other ways to look at the last 3 years. Very, very simple framework of neo-fascism with many new characteristics. Forms of neo-fascism appear from time to time, and they are defeated, or some parts of them get institutionalized or assimilated into our process. So my first comment is that populism is one way of looking at this scenario. There are also other ways. But I think the most important contribution of this book is to identify where the left and liberals have been wanting, where have, you can say, they have been proved to be proposing insufficient or inaccurate responses to some of the concrete realities. And here there are three very important critiques of the left in the book. The left approach to culture, the issue of tradition and religion. Second, the left approach to caste, and the left approach to institutions. In many different ways, because these are a number of articles put together, but of course rewritten to make the very important integrated framework of a critique. Now on culture and religion, and that's where he thinks that the Hindutva forces, grabbed the opportunity, occupied the vacuum of cultural disaffection and some of the alienation. The left, on the other hand, took religion, rather mechanically, and the need for serious understanding of the kind of contradictions. Now, for example, he says indeed that the fragmentation, the caste, class, and other kinds of fragmentation which actually exist in society, there were two ways to handle that. One was to not give in to identity politics, but to not ignore the plurality and the specificity of the various fragments, but combine the two, but provide the material, in Prabhat's term, the material response that could actually provide the substance to that specific identity or specific component of this society. On the other hand, when this was not happening, and in the neoliberal context, the impact was so debilitating, increasing inequalities, loss of employment, and so many such distress situations. In that, the BJP provides a homogenizing and confidence building framework. Now, how fair is this critique? I think it's largely fair, correct. But if you look at some of the attempts which have, or some of the discussions which have gone on now and then, before the, I would say, before something like 2000 or before the first decade of this century, that indeed a very sharp critique of neoliberalism took place, and the post-Mondal India did give some insights to the left, and while emphasizing on class politics and material responses to crisis, how to address the land question of the OBC, the ways and also land rights of the Dalits and the lower OBC. This has been also talked about among the left. And in Kerala at least, that was the response. That was the kind of response. Now therefore, it is not that it has not been talked about in India, that the dialectical response to the crisis, a crisis that is seeking material response as well as an identity response, you can say. I'm simplifying it, but the specificity response among the various groups of OBCs, various groups of Dalits, various regional groups which have their material specificities. Therefore, Hindutva filling the vacuum because the left liberal program of presenting a dialectical response that was located in material response but also providing cultural confidence. It was not totally absent in India. So that's my first comment. The second is on the caste question. Now the social justice, has the social justice agenda been totally overcome or has become superfluous? I think this book and the discourse in present-day newspapers would say as if it is only a question of caste dynamics for electoral combinations and no social justice discourse. Now, and this is where the left liberal contribution should have been more pronounced. The social justice discourse after Mondal indeed pushed some of these SP, RJD, and some of the Chandrababu Naidu and all those kind of forces to select the dominant OBCs and pamper or to support them. True. That social justice program was a nuanced, differentiated, class, caste, regional program with political, economic and cultural, educational at the core of all this program. We cannot say it was totally absent. It is part of the discourse. I think there's a lot of literature in this country which tried to show that the social justice discourse is not just RJD, SP, Telugu Desam model of response. I have a feeling that Ajay is critiquing only that response. And true, I think his critique was needed. But I think the left, secular, liberal, larger discourse on social justice has had some possibilities which have to be kept in view. The strong man and that the left and right, I mean, this is a dialogue being created, or a debate being presented between a certain view of the left and a certain view of the right. Now, what about the rest of the society? And I'm afraid, you write for me, I write for you. We are the newspaper readers and these books. I think the country, and not now, throughout history and throughout this, particularly the post-Mandal, post-reform, I mean 91, India has had a varied discourse, varied action, and that's why Prabhat's attempt to draw attention to the peasant upsurge, the new movement of peasant upsurge and this worker-peasant solidarity, it has happened again and again, and we must take that into account in our construction of the story. It is not the new enthroned right and the relatively setbacked left. That is the discourse that is taking place. True, most of us engage in that, but I think Ajay included and several in this gathering, we go to many other fora all over the country, where the discourse has a different language. We speak in our own language or translated into local languages. And a lot of these things are happening. In fact, the echo of JNU debate in other campuses was far more interesting than what lectures you heard here or the books that were produced after that. The many facets of neo-fascism or democratic rights assertion and how the democratic rights elements are not deterred by any amount of repression, and how they go back to various local repressions, local neo-fascist repressions in the undivided Andhra Pradesh, in so many parts of India. Therefore, the country is much larger than the organized left and the organized right, because both are trying to operate, trying to get not only the votes. Votes are one demonstration, and they will indicate a certain moment, but it is not a unique historical moment. My dear, that is the most central thing that runs through a unique historical moment. We would like to know the magnitude of this danger, the populism of the new right and what I call the neo-fascist, this moment. But we have experienced these moments in emergency, in various moments of repression and different parts of the country, those of you who have been following Northeast and Jammu and Kashmir, and so on. Therefore, I would conclude by saying that this book and this debate really opens up new areas of discussion, that we carry new insights to see how class politics in this phase of history has become more complex. And the single message from the book and from this discussion is that to face neoliberalism and the religious conservative fanaticism of the moment and the specificity of this populism, he has a very interesting discussion throughout, how is it different from Brazil, Trump and other places. How this actually can revive some linkages with earlier struggles against repression and facets of fascism, and what we can learn from history can build new alliances and new frameworks for positive democratic action. Thank you very much.